You're watching Nevada Business Chronicles. Take a journey with us to see the innovative businesses that put Nevada on the business map. Connecting you with the businesses, events, and organizations that bring innovation and prosperity to the Nevada area, please welcome your host, Mitch Burney. We're here today at American MedFlight Inc. Air Ambulance. They've been serving the state of Nevada for over 2 decades, providing medical transport for injured and ill people from the farthest reaches of our state to local major medical centers. Today, we're going to meet the president and CEO, John Morrell.
Mitch, good to see you.
Good to see you, John. Thanks so much for being on our show and sharing your air ambulance with our community. I'd love to start, if you don't mind, by taking a look around inside one of these planes and showing them all the specialized equipment necessary to transport patients.
Let's take a look, Mitch.
I love that. John, I can't imagine the capital investment to put one of these air ambulances together, and you have a fleet of them.
We do, Mitch. The capital investment's about $1 to $1.5 million, and we operate 5 of these aircraft throughout the state of Nevada and Northern California.
And what kind of aircraft are we looking at right now?
Mitch, you're looking at a Piper Cheyenne. It's a twin turboprop aircraft powered by what's called PT6, Pratt & Whitney PT6 engines, cruising speed about 300 miles an hour over the ground. So to give you an idea, if you were to drive out to Hawthorne, or if you were to need to be transported by ground into Reno from Hawthorne, that's about a 3 to 3.5 hour drive over bumpy roads in whatever kind of weather might be present. It's about a 25-minute flight in this aircraft.
Well, that is a big deal when it comes to critically injured patients.
Absolutely. We all know that time is of the essence when you're ill, critically ill or critically injured. And 25 minutes versus 3 hours, 3.5 hours is a huge difference. It's life-saving.
I imagine that there's some personal reward involved in the number of lives that you have impacted over your career in doing this.
You know, Mitch, when I was going to college, the way I paid my way through college was working at Renown. It was Washoe Medical Center at the time, and St. Mary's. I did lifeguarding in the summers, and it was my favorite job by far growing up as a kid, working and helping people in emergency medicine. Went off and did some other things, eventually landed in aviation, and I absolutely love aviation. That's my favorite adult job, I would say. So bringing these two together has been a fantastic match for me personally.
Personally rewarding, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a look inside this aircraft and show them really what it takes to support a patient during transport.
Mitch, what you're looking at back here is the major components of an airborne ICU. I tell people that whatever you'd find at a major medical center ICU, you're going to find that equipment on this airplane. In many cases, more advanced equipment than you would find in those ICUs, and in very, very many cases, more advanced life-saving equipment that you'd find in rural hospitals.
I can imagine that the type of EMT necessary to operate in these types of quarters and under this kind of pressure is a specialized individual as well.
We've got the best nurses and EMTs, actually it's an EMTP, paramedics, in the business as far as I'm concerned. It takes a special breed of nurse. It's not so different for paramedicine because paramedics are trained to be field responders, so they're trained to deal with field emergencies. Nurses tend to be trained to the hospital environment, and they tend to be used to having a doctor kind of watching over their shoulder, having a lot of support staff around. Our nurses, on the other hand, don't have that same kind of support. So they're very type A personalities. They have to be able to make a decision on their own quickly in order to save a life. We have the best medical director that I've ever seen in this industry, bar none, Dr. Brett Fry, who also is the medical director of a major area medical center here in town. Brett establishes a protocol that these folks are able to operate under, that the nurse and medic operate under. They're able to essentially practice medicine almost independently as long as they practice within the protocols that Dr. Fry has identified for them. So it really takes somebody who can assess what's going on, who can look at their patient, who can consider the protocols that they're working under and make a decision to save a life.
And I'm sure over the course of decades, you've saved many of those.
Many, many. I have no idea how many citizens of Nevada are here today because of the work of the nurses and medics who have been part of this company for so long.
which is the fundamental reason why we wanted to share your service so much with our community. I want to take a look further inside here because even the transport systems, the gurneys that the patients lie on, are special for this unit.
Mitch, as you can see, the interior of this aircraft has been completely reconfigured for air ambulance work. What I'm sitting on right now is called the LifePort Plus unit. It's a specific unit designed for patient transport. It's used by the military, and it's the #1 unit used for patient transport because it allows us to slide the gurney into and out of the aircraft. It also has a lot of equipment built into it. It's got an integral oxygen tank, it's got a pump, a suction unit, and most importantly, this unit has to be designed to withstand G-forces that a plane would experience. So the aircraft is certified by the FAA as a Piper Cheyenne. This is not a piece that the FAA sees rolling out of the factory floor. So this piece of equipment has to be manufactured to specifications that the FAA will approve on what's called a supplemental type certificate, which basically says we have an aircraft that we've approved. Now we've got an outside piece of equipment made by a third party, and that piece of equipment has to be approved. So you can imagine the kind of standards that this equipment has to be built under. This equipment alone is about $100,000 to $150,000 piece of equipment.
John, when a regular aircraft takes off, they have to file flight plans with the FAA. How does that differ in an air ambulance?
Not a whole lot, Mitch. We still have to track our aircraft through a process called flight following and flight locating. That's all done through a communications center that we have and it's operated out of Carson City. There is a lot of priority given in the U.S. airspace system to emergency aircraft. We use a special call sign, and that call sign tells the air traffic controller that we've got a critically sick patient on board. Sometimes you can also use that call sign for organ transplants and so forth. So it's not uncommon to hear the call sign, but what that call sign is telling the controller is that life is at stake, that we need immediate priority handling in order to get that patient from point A to point B as quickly as we can. So as an example, as you may or may not know, most people know that just east of Reno is this little place called Fallon, and in that little place called Fallon we train some of the best fighter pilots in the world. It's the Navy's Top Gun school out there. And there's a massive piece of airspace that's reserved for their use to train those great fighter pilots that defend our country. I have to tell you that I'm so thankful for the controllers, the military controllers, that control our aircraft through that space, because we often go through there on the way to northeastern Nevada. And I can't really think of a time where we have not been given priority handling, even through that military airspace.
Wow.
They've allowed us to go through there in the interest of the patients that we're trying to help.
Are there any areas, restricted space, that you can't travel through?
I have not been over Area 51. They'll let you go along the outer skirts of it. They ask you a few questions about photographic equipment and U.S. nationals and so forth, but I've never been able to go really right through Area 51.
John, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us and to share your incredible business with our community. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Mitch. I appreciate you chronicling us on your show.
And would you give them some information on how they could get a hold of you in case one of their friends or family members may need your services?
Absolutely. www.americanmedflight.com is the best way to get a hold of us. Our business office is 775-856-5800.
That's John Morrell, American MedFlight Inc., Air Ambulance. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Mitch.
For more information on this guest or to see this show in its entirety, visit nvbusinesschronicles.com. While you're there, you can watch all of our past shows on the Chronicles page and stay connected with us by following us on our social media. Now more from Nevada Business Chronicles. Before the Reno Tahoe International Airport even existed, Reno Flying Service was serving the northern Nevada community, offering private charter aircraft, aircraft maintenance, private pilot's instructions, and aircraft rental. They serve the community today, over 7 decades later. We're here on the tarmac with the president and CEO of Reno Flying Service, John Morrell. John, welcome to the show.
Mitch, thanks. Good to be here.
I'm sure that the first question that comes to people's mind is, who would charter an aircraft?
Mitch, this is a time machine, so anybody who needs to save time would probably be interested in chartering an aircraft. So over the holiday weekends, we see a lot of people who might live in the Bay Area and may want to come up to Tahoe, and they don't want to spend all their time driving over a short holiday weekend, so they'll charter an aircraft. Somebody who's in Reno and wants to get to Southern California, to Las Vegas for a day or for a weekend, they'll typically charter an aircraft. And then we do a lot of support of the medical community in the area. We fly specialty doctors out into the rural areas of Nevada and California where they're able to see patients and provide clinics that they wouldn't be able to provide if they had to drive to these faraway places. And then finally, we do a lot of transplant support. So we'll fly a transplant team to a rural place in Nevada or California where they'll harvest organs. And then we'll bring those organs and the transplant team back to a major city, in this case San Francisco, at which point they take those organs and install them, for lack of a better word, into folks who are in critical need of transplant. And
Wow.
I always say it's a bad day for one family who's giving an incredible gift to a bunch of other families.
Well, and I'm sure there's some other interesting things you do for Burning Man as well.
We do. That's one of the funnest times of the year, quite frankly. Everybody from rich people from around the world. We've flown movie stars out to Burning Man. We've flown a knight of the British realm and his lady. We've flown groups of friends that just get together and they don't want to drive 4 hours through the desert and wait 2.5 hours in the line to get into the event. We fly them out, land them right at the playa, and 5 minutes later they're walking to their camp, bringing them home. They meet us at the airport out at Burning Man. We've got them back in Reno in 30 minutes.
How fantastic. I understand that somebody actually proposed on one of your flights as
Absolutely.
well. What a great idea.
This airplane right here, the gentleman chartered the aircraft. We flew all the way up to the Northern California coast, flew down the coastline at sunset, and he wanted to be over the San Francisco Bay at sunset, at which point he proposed to his girlfriend at the time, and she said yes.
You just gave me goosebumps. Maybe we need to change it from a time machine to the love machine.
A little of both.
Well, and then there's some other needs. You know, you have crisis that you help people get to, for an example.
Absolutely. It's a little more rare, but you know, if somebody has a family member that's ailing in a faraway place, particularly if they have responsibilities here in Reno. We had a lady a while back who had a farm, a local farm here, and she couldn't be away from the farm for very long. And unexpectedly, over a weekend, her parents fell very ill, and she needed to get into the Central California Valley. And we were able to fly her over in the morning and have her back to her animals and to take care of her farm back that night. So it works for situations like that too, the time machine.
The time machine, and a tremendous value for ease and flexibility, because you're open 7 days a week.
We're open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Our airplanes fly.
I'm imagining that there's a lot of fun things that happen inside the back of this aircraft, that you probably do some charters for wedding parties or bachelor parties. And
We do. Christmas time is a fun time. Corporations use a lot of the charter service, either because they need to move executives out. Mining corporations are very, very popular to use the charter. They may bring in executives from across the world, really, that they need to get out to a mine in rural Nevada, and we'll get them out there quickly and safely and efficiently and get them back to catch a flight back to wherever they live. But we were talking about the parties. We do a lot of corporate Christmas parties where we'll bring people in to Reno as a headquarters, or we'll take people from Reno out to the rural areas of our state to maybe throw a party with their folks that are based out in these rural areas. So absolutely.
what might surprise people is it can be rather economical when you do a group together, that probably more affordable than most people think.
You know, Mitch, the example that I give is, Burning Man's a great example. And that is that if you were to charter a single engine airplane like we've got out on the ramp here, you can buy a seat on a single engine airplane and you can go 120 miles an hour at the max, more likely 100. And you're going to be in there with 6, 8, 10 strangers who you've never met before, with very, very limited baggage. I think you probably would be allowed to carry 20 pounds of gear. Whereas a group of people could get together, charter our 300-mile-an-hour twin turboprop airplane for about the same price per seat, and we're going to get them out to the playa in 20 minutes versus close to an hour. We're going to get them back in 20 minutes versus close to an hour. They're going to be in a pressurized cockpit with air conditioning and the safety of twin turbine engines. So yeah, absolutely, when you break it up and you get a group of people together, it really can be quite reasonable.
And that begs the question, what type of aircraft do you fly?
Well, this one is our jet. This is a Cessna Citation S2. It's the fastest aircraft that we have on the certificate. So we fly the one jet, and then we've got 2 turboprop airplanes. This is about a 400-mile-an-hour airplane. The turboprops are about 300 miles an hour.
John, what would you say the #1 reason is why people use or choose Reno Flying Service?
Convenience and personalized service. You know, people are so tired of the line at the TSA counter these days. Here, when they're ready to go, they pull up into the parking lot. If they have stuff to unload, we can allow their car out onto the ramp, at which point we'll take their bags out of the car for them, screen their bags, put them on the airplane. 5 minutes later, they're on the plane and taxiing out, going to wherever their destination is.
Well, I'm sure that that's going to appeal to a lot of our viewers. Can we take this out for a spin?
Absolutely.
Well,
Love to show it to you.
Well, John, we're back here in your maintenance hangar, and you service more than just your own aircraft here.
We do, Mitch. We'll service aircraft on anybody who needs some help. Sometimes we have people coming in for things like the Reno Air Races, and we do local work for folks who need an inspection or need maintenance, or we'll work on transient airplanes as they come in and out.
Your commitment to the service side of your business is impressive.
Thank you.
Your commitment to the customer extends into your service hangar right up to the hours of availability.
Absolutely. The shop is open, typical business hours, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. However, we're available for aircraft maintenance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
I mean, that's just incredible. You mentioned that we have people that fly in from out of town for air races, and maybe they need some servicing while they're here.
Absolutely.
To even be able to fly in the air races. They have a 24-hour shop as a support crew for them.
Absolutely.
I'd bet you're one of the only shops, if not the only shop in the western United States that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
There's not a lot that are available for sure. Most of the time you go and land somewhere in the middle of the night and you're stuck there. If your airplane's broken, you're going to be there for a night, 2 nights, 3 nights. There's not a lot of places where you can call somebody out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's incredible. As we can see, your maintenance personnel are doing an inspection on one of your turboprop MedFlight planes. Tell us what they're doing here.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mitch, they're doing a 100-hour inspection, but I'll call the expert over and introduce you to my Director of Maintenance, Brian McCarter. Hey, Brian, you got a minute?
Brian, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So tell us what we're doing here.
Well, we're currently performing a 100-hour inspection. All of our aircraft go through a 100 hours inspection after 100 hours of flight. And what that entails is depaneling the aircraft, taking the cowls off, and inspecting various components of the aircraft and seeing if we have any damage. And during that period of time, we do some preventive maintenance.
And at this point, they're putting things back together, and what's the next step?
Well, what we'll do at this point in time is take the aircraft out onto the ramp, and we'll run it, and we'll leak check it and make sure that everything is okay and no leaks. And we'll do some performance runs on the aircraft engines. Then we'll bring it back in, recal it, and then we'll take it back out, do another final run on it. It'll be ready for being put back into service.
And then we're ready to go flying.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yes.
John, I'm probably not alone. The thought of actually taking a lesson and learning how to fly has been a bucket list of mine.
Absolutely, Mitch. You know, a lot of people want to learn how to fly. I think there's 3 fears. Number one, people don't know how much it costs, and they probably think it costs more than it does. Another thing is people are afraid to fly, and even those people who are interested might be a little bit fearful. And then the third thing is you really have to connect with your instructor. You really have to feel good about the person who you're flying with. So in order to address those 3 fears, what we do is we give people the opportunity to come in and take what we call a discovery flight for $100. So for $100 you can come in, learn how to get in, learn how to pre-flight, what we call pre-flight the airplane, learn how to taxi the airplane, the very, very basics of pulling back on the yoke, making the plane fly, turning, climbing, descending, all those very basics. You actually get to do these things to see if this is going to be for you for $100. So it's not much of an investment to see if that's going to be something you're interested in. We've got highly, highly experienced instructors. I've got one instructor who has over 20,000 hours of dual given. That's 20,000 hours of instruction that he's given to other people. Probably has trained hundreds of pilots throughout his lifetime. And another guy who formerly flew airliner-sized airplanes. He's here in semi-retirement. Myself, I don't do any more primary instruction, but it's something that I love. I've got a passion for it. I teach my friends still, but I still run the program. I still run the flight school. I've taught all the way from single-engine airplanes all the way up through literally airliner-sized airplanes and taught people how to fly and be first officers and captains both.
Well, you make that sound fun and safe. So.
It is a lot of fun, and it's very safe.
Well, John just invited me to take a discovery flight. He set us up with flight instructor Bob. Let's go meet him. Bob, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to give us a discovery flight. What are we going to do?
Well, Mitch, we're going to go out and we're going to do the normal run-up. We're going to take the airplane out. We're going to fly around the traffic pattern, give you a chance to get a feel for it, see what the airplane is like. And believe it or not, you're going to take off the airplane and you're going to do most of the landing. I'm going to help you with it, and we'll see how that goes, see what you like.
I'm excited. Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. All right, now one of the things in these airplanes with an instructor is if I say my airplane, you let go of everything.
Got it.
Otherwise, I'm going to have you taxiing the airplane, doing all the things that you're going to do to learn to fly the airplane.
Oh my.
So we're going to start out and we'll go through our checklist and we'll go through the whole procedures. We've already done the line check inspection.
You got the brakes now, right?
Okay, my airplane.
Okay, your airplane. Got it. Okay.
And so then we got the walk around. We've completed all this. Then we go to the before starting engine. Pre-flight inspection complete. Seats, seat belts, and shoulder harnesses adjust and lock. Reno Tahoe Sky 17 General 5-star ready to take off.
All right, is this your aircraft, right?
No, you're going to have it in a second.
Okay.
Now I want you to get your airplane and push on the right rudder. Right rudder just as hard as you can. Bring it right around. See the line up there, the runway? Okay, now put the brakes on and whoa. Okay, all right. That worked well. You got the brakes on.
I got the brakes on.
Okay, now I want you to put your right hand on the throttle. We're going to leave your left hand on your knee for right now, but as we get going and when we see the airspeed indicator get to about 50 knots, I want you to reach up and grab a hold of the yoke. But remember, we're still steering with our feet.
Got it.
And then I'll tell you when to rotate the yoke back and we'll climb out. Then we want to see about 65 to 70 knots. This is 70 right there. This is 65 right there on the climb. And we correct that speed with the pitch. Scott Germany, Foxtrot, clear for takeoff, 25 left course traffic. All right, full power, push the throttle all the way in and hold it there.
Bob, what an extraordinary experience. I didn't expect to have the controls to literally take off, fly that plane, and land it with your assistance, of course, but I really had about 90% control over that aircraft.
Yes, you did, Mitch, and that's what a discovery flight's all about. It gives you a chance to really see what it's like to fly an airplane.
It was unbelievable. I can't even describe it. I highly recommend it, and I can't wait for people to see this and for them to come out and give it a try.
The first flight is always such an exciting thing, and one of the reasons I flight instruct is I get to relive that first flight with everybody, because you just can't go back and do the first thing ever again. And this gives me a chance to do that. And I've been doing this for 54 years. I love every minute of it.
What an extraordinary experience. I can't wait for people to see this and just come down. You've got to try it. You've got to give it a whirl. I imagine that a lot of people, as soon as that happens, like me, right now I'm on cloud 9 and just overwhelmed. That a lot of people then wind up finding out that they really want to do this.
They wind up starting to go flying, and I tell everyone, flying is a disease. There's no known cure. You can only treat it with flights. And once you get bitten by the bug, it's pretty hard to break the habit. Wow. I have a good example of that.
Yep, I can see why. That was an absolute extraordinary experience. Highly recommend it. Thanks again for taking us up.
Mitch, it's our pleasure. Glad to have you.
Now, John, since we just got back from learning how to fly one of these and getting a private pilot's lessons and hopefully a license as well, you also then allow me to rent a plane from you.
We would, Mitch, yeah. We've got the same two aircraft that we use for flight instruction. We also rent out as rental aircraft once somebody has their pilot's license.
And so let's say that I want to take a trip up the coast of California from northern Nevada, from Reno for an example, and maybe an hour and a half trip each way.
Sure.
What would that cost to rent a plane?
Mitch, it's about $140 an hour to rent these planes. So if you flew an hour and a half, a couple hours up to somewhere on the Northern California coast, Shelter Cove is a great place up there on the Northern California coast. You could go in. That particular little town is a place where you can fly in. The airport's in the middle of town. You can get a bed and breakfast weekend and then come home on Sunday evening, and it's probably going to cost you $500 to $600 in aircraft rental fees.
And you're talking per hour of actual flight time, not the total time the plane is between destinations.
Correct. It's $140 per hour of flight time. So cool. You're not paying for all the time that the airplane's away, you're paying for the time that you used it.
Well, that makes it a lot of fun to have your private pilot's license, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and it allows you to rent an airplane without the huge cost and investment of ownership up front.
And insurance and all of the other maintenance and
so forth. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
You bet.
What an absolutely wonderful day, chartering a plane, taking a discovery flight, learning about aircraft maintenance. That was John Morrell, President and CEO of Reno Flying Service. You can reach them on the internet at renoflyingservice.com. Visit them at 485 South Rock Boulevard or give them a call at 775-856-5800. On this guest or to see this show in its entirety, visit nvbusinesschronicles.com. While you're there, you can watch all of our past shows on the Chronicles page and stay connected with us by following us on our social media. For information on becoming a guest on our show, contact us at info@nvbusinesschronicles.com. We hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week at the same time for more from Nevada Business Chronicles.